Hi, and welcome to 4 things you need to do to ace your next interview. The first one really is developing a good answer to what often is the most difficult question. It seems simple, it seems inane, it seems innocent, but here it comes. Can you tell me about yourself? This question is often the question that's used to start an interview. It's a good kind of initial icebreaker, it would seem. But if you survey people who have recently had an interview and ask them which question they struggled the most with, which question they're most unsure or insecure in terms of how they did, it's that one. And really people don't know where to start and they don't know what to include or where to end. So the formula there is pretty straightforward. You need first a 30-second introduction. It's really important that you have the title of the person that they're looking for, assuming that makes sense. Your education, years of experience, any kind of preparation that's relevant to that job in that first 30-second answer. I mean, obviously that takes maybe half an hour of coaching to develop, so it's not a quick thing you just throw together. But it's really important that you have that kind of like 30-second, just like, yes, I am the person you're looking for. Now you want to back that up with a quick review of your career, starting at the older experience and going through your most recent experience. You really want to spend very little time in the past and most of your time in the most recent portion of your career. You can really spruce this up by adding an accomplishment, and we'll be talking about accomplishments in the next section. Number 3 is your leading story. You basically need to let people know why you're not longer at the last company you're at. Again, this is something that requires a little bit of work, something I help with my clients do all the time. But basically you want to make the leading story about the business decision that was made, and it shouldn't be personally related to you. It should be more around, we closed this division, or they this part of the business was no longer profitable, so they closed it, or whatever makes sense. I live in a part of the world where oil prices go up and down and companies hire and lay off people accordingly. So, depending on your industry, your location, and what's kind of normal and expected, if you can relate it to any of those trends, perfect. And the fourth part is the what's now. So now this might get confusing because I'm talking about 4 parts that you need to answer the first tip that I'm giving you. So it's a 4 and a 4. So the last piece really is the what's next, what's now, and it's basically you taking your background, your skills and experience, and doing some research in terms of what they're looking for and what they need, and basically bringing them together and showing them that you are, a great candidate, maybe even the best candidate for that role. So that's all jammed into about 3 to 4 minutes. It's a lot of really good content, and you really have to be super efficient with your words. So it takes time and effort to develop, but it's super, super interesting because I've helped many clients develop an answer to the most potentially difficult question of an interview. It's also the question that sets the tone. So if you nail this one, then the whole interview can go really well from there. On the other hand, if you flub it, then you're kind of starting off in a type of deficit, and you might even feel not so great about the experience and kind of be digging yourself out of a hole for the rest of the interview. So a lot hangs on this, on your answer to this question. And what's super interesting to me is that all the times I've practiced this question, imagine a joke and you know this joke so well, you know every aspect of it and every element, and yet every time you hear it, you completely laugh your face off. This doesn't really work with jokes because after a while, you hear the same joke, you're like, yeah, I know that joke. But the super interesting thing for me is when I work with my clients and I help them develop a really good answer to this question, is that I'm always so impressed. And it's like I can't help it. And they're going through the steps, and I know what the steps are, and I help them craft the words, and I help them walk through every single piece of it. I know exactly what's coming next, and yeah, it's like I know every aspect of it, and yet the feelings and the inner reaction that comes out of me is like, wow, this is such an impressive person. And so, anyways, very, very important. Tell me about yourself. It's a chance to hit a grand slam home run out of the park and start everything on a super good note, create a super impressive first impression, and then they'll be looking for data to confirm that first impression. Or you can kind of like muddle through it, start off in a deficit. It's not going to go so well, unless of course you discovered a cure to cancer or something like that. Step number 2 is you need to come up with 8 to 10 accomplishments. So an accomplishment is basically any kind of career highlight. You could have been like recognized for it, gotten awards, achievements, and those are always great, right? If you get that outside, let's say, objective recognition, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes, it's just something that was really significant and meaningful to you. Ultimately, to me, as a coach, what's important to me is that it's important to you. So don't limit yourself in terms of your examples, but now you need to communicate them effectively. A lot of companies are doing what they call behavioral descriptive interview questions. And I'm going to save you a long, boring story, but basically they did a lot of research in terms of what makes interview questions effective. And up to the 80s and 90s, everything we're doing was basically pretty ineffective, was less than 40% effective in predicting the best candidate. So back in those days, flipping a coin would have been so much better. And then actually just doing an interview. So they did some research and they figured out, okay, like how can we structure interview questions so they actually help us identify the best candidates. And I think it must have been like a big like dough kind of moment, but they realized that the most effective way of predicting future behavior is past behavior. And again, it sounds super obvious once I say it. And then the more recent the behavior, the stronger it is as a predictor. So it sounds super, super obvious, but basically in a nutshell, what a company is looking for is for you to give them real live examples of when you recently did exactly what they need you to do tomorrow. So this makes all the difference. So recruiters can be looking for 3 or 4 elements depending on how you slice it. I slice it into 3, but you could slice it into 4. So you've probably heard of STAR stories or SOAR or other things like that. My acronym is CAR because I wanted to come up with my own acronym. So yeah, you got to be cheesy that way. And 2, really, the first 2 elements of it for me always kind of overlap into one. Anyway, so what is the CAR? The C, number 1, is the context. So I need to know which company you're at, when this happened in time, and basically why you're doing things. And why is what adds the pizzazz and the interest and the drama and the the oomph to your answer. So if I don't know why you're doing things, like why would I even care what your answer is? So I need to know the why. And there's really only 2 kinds of whys. So I'm going to make it super easy for you. The first why would be an obstacle. So basically there's a problem and you're fixing it. The second kind of why is an opportunity. So you're at this level and you want to be here. Everything's going well, but hey, it could be better. And you found a way to make it better. So your why for any accomplishment, statement or story, whatever you want to call it, is either an obstacle or an opportunity. So now that's the context, the action. Action, most people really get right in most interview practices. I do. Everybody's thinking about proving that they can do what they need to do. And so the action is something that I think comes quite natural. Where it totally goes off the rails is when people talk about we. So we did this, we did that. And I understand it. It's a very natural and almost logical mistake to make because a lot of people work on projects and they're part of teams, multidisciplinary teams and all this kind of stuff. And so now you talk about what you did as a we did this and then we did that and then this happened and then we did this. And so unfortunately, I'm looking to hire you, not the whole team. And yeah, so you gotta, so the project was this big or the team effort was this big. You gotta talk about your slice and what you did to contribute to the overall result. So you don't wanna like take credit for what the whole team did, obviously, that would be very dishonest. But yeah, you got to take credit for your part and you have to be very clear on the part you played. That's the action. Result, super important. I think people that have a sales background or engineering background, they usually think about results. This is what they do day in, day out. They're constantly showing the results to others and blah, blah, blah. And so for them, this is pretty straightforward and easy. But for most people, it's not something they've thought about. And for me, it's actually really rewarding because when I talk to people, especially if they have just been laid off or something like that, they're kind of down, they're kind of maybe not feeling so great about themselves. And then when they start to go through and really through this kind of exercise and they start to become aware of like, hey, here's all the cool things I've taken on and here's all the great results I achieved. It's a really positive empowering type of exercise for a lot of people. And you know, I get the great honor and privilege to be a witness to it and to see people kind of like rediscover that they are quite capable and quite competent and have been quite successful in the past and can continue to be successful in the future. So context, action, result. Now, when you're doing results, whenever possible, numerical results are king or queen, whatever the highest ranking is for you, but it's really at the top. You want to have something numerical if at all possible, but if not, then there's qualitative results, and this is something you know, I can help you with. But basically, yeah, the more concrete your results are, the better. So that is your accomplishments. We need 8 to 10 of those. What you're going to find is that each one of those is like a massive Swiss Army knife for interview questions. And with, you know, 8 to 10 accomplishments, you'll be able to answer tens of thousands of different interview questions. So, you know, you can go online and look at all the different types of interview questions and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But really, 8 to 10 accomplishments is what you need. And it all might sound like crazy voodoo mumbo jumbo, but really think about it. If I tell you I can do something and then I back it up with a real life example, isn't that just so much more believable and compelling and convincing and persuading? So just, you know, when my clients kind of get glossy eyed over accomplishments and, you know, context, action, result, well, it sounds like super artificial and complex, blah, blah. I just say at the end of the day, you're backing up what you can do with a real life example as evidence. And I think that's very simple, straightforward, and makes sense to everybody. Number 3 really is you need to prepare for any difficult and, you know, all those kind of gotcha questions out there. And there's really lots, you know, infinite kind of difficult questions, but there's only a couple of kinds of them. And you can go online. I would find it way too boring to like go online and look at all the difficult questions and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to bore you with that. You can easily, you know, do an online search and find some of those. But basically, I show you the strategies, how to deal with them. There's some basic principles. And once you know those, you can basically answer any one of these questions. And it's really good to actually practice a number of them. I have my own set, you know, different people are going to have different ones. But it's good to really be prepared and practice them so that, you know, you're kind of feeling resilient. And it's kind of like, you know, I don't know, maybe like a boxer doing some sparring before a match to just have all those muscles loose and be ready to take on some of those potentially difficult questions. The 4th tip really is practice, practice, practice. You can almost not practice too much. I guess you can't do everything too much, but, you know, in terms of practicing, you can't do too much. I mean, you can practice with your family members, your friends, your colleagues, your pets, a mirror. At the end of the day, the challenge with practicing, I mean, I would practice if I mean, it's always going to be better than not practicing. But ultimately, really what you need is really good feedback. Family members might give you feedback that's too loving and not clear enough, or they might give you feedback that's way too harsh and like crushing. And let's face it, you know, your colleagues, your last boss, your family members, your friends, like what do they actually know about interviewing? I mean, they know what they like and they know what, but are they gonna prepare you for like the whole wide range of people out there and all the different interview processes and all that kind of stuff? And do they even know what a good answer looks like? Probably not. Are they trained in behavioral descriptive interview questions? Probably not. But, I've run into professionals that are somewhat trained in that, but again, it's not something they specialize in day in, day out. They're busy doing whatever they do. So they're busy being engineers or teachers or environmentalists or whatever. So yeah, practice ideally, if you want to hit a home run, practice with a, you know, successful career coach that's helped people find a lot of work, like somebody like me. So anyways, if you have any questions about my coaching, you know, look me up on LinkedIn, find my recommendations, all that kind of stuff. I wish you all the best with your next interview. I hope it's a success. And really, ideally for me, your next interview, you leave like you knew what the process was, you understood the rules of the game, what the game was, and you feel like you did the best job you could, you know, within those parameters. And you feel confident that you did the best. Whether you get a job or not, who knows? But you can only do so many awesome interviews before you get a job offer. So you basically want to nail every single interview you do And hopefully these 4 tips will help you on that trip. Anyways, I look forward to seeing you again.